The reality for many of us is we don't look like our stories. We don't look like our stories. Oftentimes, if we hear our story from the end, we think it was all good and it made sense and it worked out. But the reality for many of us is that we're in the middle of the story, and unlike Job, we're not at the end of the story. The reality for many of us is that in the mid place, in the in between place, we feel rejected. Like God doesn't hear my voice anymore. We feel distraught. Like all my planning had to go for something. Why is it going this way? And the reality is I was thinking about this and I was like, why would plans deferred resonate so much with people? Why would my plans being deferred? Because we put so much investment in our plans. We make them, we articulate them, they sink in our heart. We have a plan, we know how it's going to go. We'll take this job, we'll get this promotion, we'll do this next thing and this next thing, and we'll get there. We'll go to college, we'll meet the right person, we'll graduate with an MBA and an MRS. I'm just telling what the notes say. This is what my notes say. We have invested years of planning, years of effort, years of execution, years of dreaming. Some of us as kids, when we were 4, 5, 6, and 7, they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we would say it, and we spent the last 18 years trying to get there, and then we finally get the job that we said we wanted at 5, and all of a sudden, we realize it's the wrong job. We feel as if the plans that God had for my life have been deferred. My story wasn't supposed to go this way. My story wasn't supposed to end up like this. My story was so much different. I had other things in mind. I planned for different things. I knew that that if I did all the right things, it would work out a certain way. And now I'm standing here in my life looking around going, I did everything right, and God's left me because I have this deck of cards in front of me. I didn't sin. I didn't rebuke God. But I have this bitter reality in front of me. Now, let me parenthetically insert, you could have a whole bunch of things going right in your life. But there's that one area that is just pulling at your heart that you are like, God, why is this not making sense for me? I prayed. I paid my tithe. I was a good church person. I didn't lie on I did everything you asked me to do, and I'm still right here. It is one of the most painful things as a believer because this is the place we question God the most. Because it's not an event, it's a season. So it's not like one thing happens and we go, okay, God, this one thing happened. No, you're living in this season where you're going, God, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I walked the steps of a righteous man, and look at me right now. Why am I here? And you're thinking about that thing year in and year out, and it's chipping away slowly at your faith. You're thinking to God, why am I dealing with this? Why am I dealing with illness? Why am I dealing with aging parents? Why am I dealing with all the issues of marriage? Why am I dealing with all the job challenges? Why am I dealing all the career challenges? Why am I dealing with all the school challenges? Why am I dealing with all these other issues in my life? Why am I dealing with these financial challenges? Why am I dealing with my body breaking down? Why am I dealing with all of this after I've done everything you've asked me to do? Because I had different plans. I had different plans. I was going to do something else. What happens when my plans are deferred? We get to the book of Job, which is an interesting book. You know, everybody knows the story, but let me tell it again for everybody to hear one more time. The book of Job is a theologically challenging book. It's a theologically challenging book because it starts in an interesting place. It starts in heaven, and the devil goes to God, which is an interesting thing, the devil and God having a conversation. And the devil challenges God, and God says, well, there's Job. He's a man that is righteous. He is the most righteous man I know. He won't turn against me. So you go deal with him as you would, devil. And the devil attacks Job in 3 ways. He takes all of his stuff, which is hard enough. We live in Silicon Valley. Most of you know if you lose your job today, by the time you pay rent next month, you need a new job. We live here. This is, 3 months back up. Anywhere else in the country is 1 month's rent here. Amen. Amen. He takes away his family, but not his whole family. This is very interesting, Reverend Tahina. He only takes away his children. He kept them with his wife. So he takes away his legacy. And he doesn't curse God at the legacy. He doesn't. So the devil redoubles his attack and attacks his person, his physical being. Now, if this wasn't enough, he had 3 know-it-all friends. The interesting thing is there are certain people that look for people that have issues to go talk to. Mine are Oprah Winfrey's. They saw it on Iyanla last week, so they're going to do it this week to you. And it's so interesting. 2 of the friends blamed the sin in his life. The 3rd friend blames the fact that he is distant from God. How they call them friends, but how are they doing this to him? So he goes through and he's going back and forth, and there's some lessons we're going to learn about dealing with friends, dealing with friends, in quotes, during issues time. But at the end of it all, by the time we reach to the 42nd chapter, he's restored everything. But this thing challenged me, Jermaine, because why would God allow the devil to attack him? But this thing taught me, before I get into the meat of the text, it showed me some interesting things about the character of God. The first thing, God is paying attention to us. So there's somebody in the room that doesn't think God is paying attention to you. Just like Job, God knows you. Now, he doesn't do it for condemnation. He does it because he cares for you. The second thing that this thing teaches me, the second thing that this teaches me about the character of God, is God has power over the devil. Some of you are giving forces in the supernatural and the natural way too much control in your life. Oh, the devil did it, the job did it, the sky did it, whoever did it, doesn't matter. God is more powerful and stronger. The devil had to go to God to talk to him to see if he could even do something. The reality is that some of us, we give the devil more credence than we give God, because sometimes we'll be like, I don't know, the devil attacked my life. Why didn't you just pray and let the God step on the head of the devil and fix your situation? So many of us are too busy declaring what the attack of the devil is that we don't talk about the resurrecting power and healing power of Jesus Christ. Sometimes you've got to know that God has that power. The other thing that this story tells me is that the absence from God has unintended consequences. Job's greatest issue was his absence in relationship with God during the hard time. God did it on purpose, but some of us are doing it to ourselves. You are absent from God. You don't have a relationship with God. You know who he is. I know, you know. And you do some of the functions of it. You know, you show up to church on some Sundays. You know, if you're in California, it's 1 every 6. But you're absent from God. And the absence of God in your life is leading to unintended consequences. You're wondering why things are breaking apart in certain ways. You're wondering why you have emptiness in certain places. You're wondering why you have challenges with certain issues. It's the absence from God. You know, Howard, the one thing they told me is that relationship requires two. God will always reach out, but are you taking his hand? And then the final thing that this taught me about God. God has our best interest in the long run. The one thing I learned about my predictive powers is I probably get it right 10% of the time. If you ask me to predict the future right now, I can't even tell you what I'm going to eat for lunch. And so many of us, we will sit in the middle of situations and try to figure out the end, and we can't even figure out how to tie our shoelaces. But let me tell you who has the end: God. So when God said, devil, go get him, God knew what he was going to do in the end for him. So let's look at the text, because I think it's very interesting. If we go to that 10th verse. And the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends. Now, oftentimes, we stay in bad places because we engage in the people that are in those places. Whether it's toxic family relationships, whether we're trying to relive the unhealthy relationship we had in high school with a different person every 2 years. We stay so caught up in the people that are involved and engaged in these situations. The interesting thing is you've got to be careful of a few things. People that invoke the power of God for human actions. Look at what Job's friends did. Job's friends said, you're going through something, so it must be a sin issue. You are going through something, so it must be a distance issue. Why didn't they pray for him? Why didn't they encourage him? How many of us are dealing with real human struggles, real human issues, and when you talk to people around you, all they can do is either give you the negative or they over-spiritualize it and blame you. How many of us are walking out of church today with years of guilt from the people in church that don't really know God? It's there in the text. Go read the book of Job. He's got 3 friends that keep badgering him. The interesting thing about these friends is that you can't talk to people all the time. One of the biggest things, I think, is we waste our breath on the wrong people. Amen. Samuel, in the second part of the book of Job, one of his friends give him a 6-verse response. 6 verses, 6 verses. And Job spends the next 6 chapters trying to justify and convince him. How many of us are spending so much time trying to convince the wrong people of things that they can't even see? They don't have the information. They don't understand. You arguing, you might as well argue with the wall, because the wall might listen to you quicker than they going to listen to you. You're so caught up in the people that are in the situation with you that your plans and what God has for you is being deferred. Just pray for them. Just pray for them and move on. Let me tell you the easiest way to end dealing with people like that. Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, I was saying, no. Okay. And thank you. What are you going to do? Anything but listen to you right now. The strongest thing you could say to some people is, okay, thank you, and I'll pray for you. Stop letting people, I don't care if it's your parents, I don't care if it's your family member, I don't care if it's your job, I don't care if it's your social circle. You need to stop letting people rent space in your life and keep you held down. At some point, you just got to look at them and say, you're not God. You don't know God's mind. You're trying to write a prophetic thing on my life with no prophetic gift. Okay, thank you. That's the first thing Job did, is he had to clear the deck and pray for them. How many of us are in the darkest times of our life, and we spend more time imagining conversations with people to justify our darkness? We spend more time dealing with conversations than we do dealing with prayer. That person doesn't deserve more space in your life than Jesus. The next thing is you need a period of healing and restoration. If we pull up the 11th verse, please. Then came to him all his brothers and sisters, all who had known him before, and ate bread with him in his house. Next verse. And they showed him and comforted him for all the evil the Lord had brought upon him. And he gave him a piece of money or gold. We have to be honest with ourselves. When we go through difficult and dark times, when we feel like God has left us, we need a season to sit down and be healed and restored. So many of us want to run to the result when God is saying, I need you to slow down and just be healed and restored. The reality is, if you go back through the book of Job, there are moments in the book of Job where Job shows doubt, where Job has issues with God, where Job calls God out and basically says, if you're really God, you need to show up right now. He has some issues of his heart. There are some burn marks on his heart. There's some calluses, there's some bumps, there's some bruises, there's some scabs from the moment that he went through. And you can't, as a person, go through emotionally difficult times, have dreams broken, have challenges and issues, and then act like nothing happened. Yeah, you are blessed and highly favored, but you do need to heal. You are an overcomer, but you do need to stop. Let me give you an example. Jesus feeds the 5,000, which in modern math is about 15,000 people. What does he do? He goes up to the mountain and prays. He needs to be restored. Before he goes to the cross, he goes up to the mountain and pray because he needs to be restored. Some of us are trying to be Superman and we never take time for moments of restoration. Now, let me parenthetically insert. You can't do it by yourself. I know we just talked about the friends. And there are people that are toxic and use spirituality in toxic ways. But the power of a faith community is there are people that actually know what to do. The first thing is they can pray for you. They always point back to Jesus. I am the bread of life. Start lifting up biblical principles to you. Start encouraging your spirit. That's the power of this community. Because when I have challenges, when you have challenges, there's somebody that can pray for you, that can encourage you. Listen to me. This is what you don't want. Somebody that wants to spend hours talking to you about your problems. Talking to you about your problems. There's a difference between listening and nodding and being sympathetic or talking to you about you. You got it? Because some people, they want to talk to you about your problems. They don't want to listen. They ain't going to tell you about, yeah, you're right. It is crazy. But you need that time to heal. You need that time to redirect. You need that time to say, you know what, God, I am hurt. I had a plan. It didn't work out. Can I just get rest right now? Can I stop the voices that are running in my head? Can you give me not a replacement for what I was looking for, but a sense of peace in the challenge? I was talking to my wife earlier this week, and I think one of the issues people have is that when they get their plans deferred, they try to keep recreating the plan, and they keep getting in these cycles of recreating the plan. They keep trying to do it a different way. They keep trying to figure it out a different way. They keep trying to say, okay, if I do it this way differently, if I do it this way differently, if I do it this way differently, and then they realize I've wasted 10, 15, 20 years of my life trying to chase the same dream when all I needed to do at one point was just to say, stop, God, Selah, I just need to rest in you and figure out the healing that needs to happen inside my spirit so that when I do go back to face the world and I do go back to redream my destiny, that it's done in a healthy way, not out of ego, not out of desperation, not out of false dreams, but out of a fountain of God's love flowing inside of me. You know, one of the challenges I find is as independent as we think our area is, you know, everybody's a startup. They're going to invent something new. They're going to make the next great thing. They're going to save the world. And Jesus did it 2,000 years ago. You get caught up in the rush of our culture. And it's pushing us. And sometimes we need to disengage with culture and say, God, I need to heal from the pressures of culture. I'm going to tell you, culture will grind you up and spit you out on the other end. Because no matter how much you get, no matter how high you get, no matter what you create, culture will look at you within 3 months and go, what's next? You just got a nice new car, so okay, what's the next car? You just got a big house, so what's the renovation you going to do? You just got promoted, so what's the next company you going to go to? This ain't the old days. You know, Reverend Ken, the average person stays at a job for 2 years. Because now we're on a cycle of the next big hit and the next big hit and the next big hit. How does that grind away at our soul? I've got to re-engage my compass to deal with my reality every 2 years. You need to rest. Now the final thing, this is my favorite part, and my favorite part of the text is be open to where God leads. If we go to the 12th verse. And the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. And he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. It says it earlier, I believe, in the 10th or 11th verse, where they said they gave him double what he had in the beginning. Job had followed man. If Job had followed his own plan, he would have never been blessed in his latter days. What am I trying to say to you? Sometimes you have to trust the unexpected places that God will have you go so he can bless you in a different way in the future. Let me tell you, the chart or the Gantt chart or the plan chart or the spreadsheet or the project plan looks a certain way. God calls you to do something different. It doesn't make sense. But sometimes if you trust God's plan for you, in your latter days, it will bless you more than your present days. Sometimes you got to disengage with what man's plan is for you and get engaged with what God's plan is. Because once you are sitting in the dark and wondering what's happening, no man can give you peace. No man died on the cross for you. But Jesus the Christ died on the cross over 2,000 years ago to say, I will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. I have created you as a peculiar creation that I will bless in my next season. But what you have to do and understand is that we are in a free will relationship with Jesus. So we have to make the choice to follow him. Reverend Jordan, so many people get frustrated with God but never follow him. They ain't mad at God. He ain't do right by me. But did you ever follow him? Did you ever trust him? Did you ever do what his word asked to do? Did you ever lift the decision that you're about to make about your next move to Jesus? How many major decisions in the last 5 years have you prayed about? Notice nobody said amen. That's deep. I know. That's why I said it. But you know what the great thing about God's plan is? Is you can hop right on the conveyor belt today. You could get engaged in that plan today. You don't got it's not over. God is not a God that's so capricious that he will say, you didn't follow me in the beginning, so I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to give you anything. And there's an interesting parable talked about those that worked in the field. And those that worked in the field in the morning, they started working. And then there's some more that came at afternoon time, and they all worked in the field. And some came at 3 o'clock before the field shut down at 4 o'clock. But the master still paid all of them the same thing. This is a parable that Jesus taught because what he says is it doesn't matter when you get involved, it just matters if you get involved. Because he is a God that says if you hop on the land, I'll bless you. May you please stand.